Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Blackjack. Today, as always, I will be doing a YouTube deck tech for you guys. If you're interested in having me put a deck together for you or help you tweak a current list, I'm looking for any of the 5 metrics in the comment section. A bracket, a budget, a theme, a commander, and any pet cards you have. Today, we are going to be doing a in-depth review and deck building guide for you guys at home. So I have a personal friend who wants to build Mondrak. It is their first foray into Magic the Gathering, their first time building a deck, their first time playing Commander, all that good stuff. These are the cards that they currently own. I've helped them look through their personal collection that they have and get a baseline of cards to start with. And I'm going to be doing a in-depth review about how to build a deck, my thought process behind decisions and things like that, to kind of give you some insight to my deck building and maybe give you some ideas going forward for when you put your own stuff together. So they're going with Mondrak Glory Dominus. Basically, when I look at this commander, obviously whenever you are identifying your commander and what your commander does, you want to make sure that it synergizes with the rest of the deck, because unlike every other card in your deck, your commander is a renewable resource. So no matter how many times your commander gets board wiped or gets exiled, killed in combat, you can always recast it as long as you have the mana to pay for it. So you want to make sure that everything that you have going on in your deck is attempting to synergize with your commander in some way or benefit from your commander being on the battlefield. The cards that we currently started off with, and again, this is just stuff that they already owned. Eternal Wanderer, not the best thing on the planet, but it does make tokens, so you're able to double that with Mondrak, and then you can also do a one-sided board wipe. Adeline, probably one of the best things for this deck that you can be doing. So when I look at a creature like this, 3 mana, so it's going to come out before your commander, which is important. It attacks and then it creates tokens for each other opponent, and it's tapped and attacking. So this is great for our commander for 2 reasons. One, it can come out before our commander consistently. So on its first attack, once it's done being summoning sick, it can get the effect from Mondrak. And 2, its effect does get doubled by Mondrak. So on its own, Adeline is already a really good creature in a token synergistic deck, but in Mondrak it's that much more powerful because you get to double its effect. Defiler of Faith was a cool one. Basically, it turns all of your white pips in your deck into Phyrexian symbols, so you can pay 2 life instead of a white mana for casting any white permanent from here on out, if this is out. And then whenever you cast a white permanent, it creates a 1/1 token. So again, multifaceted, and one thing I really want to drive home that I do in all my videos is it's really important that when you're deck building, you're not just going to EDH rec and picking the most expensive and the most played stuff. EDH rec is what I use to put together almost all of my decks, and one things I almost completely ignore is this percentage area. So Anointed Procession is played in 57% of 2,500 decks. Obviously, you would take that at face value as being an extremely powerful card, in the same way that Adeline is almost the exact same level. I don't want to identify the cards that should go in this deck based on the percentage. I'm just going based on what I see as powerful, what I see as budget friendly, and what I see as unique. So even when I'm looking to build something like Mondrak, yes, I'm going to play cards that are powerful in any traditional Mondrak deck. When you look at Adeline, White Sun's Twilight, Akroma's Will, these are going to be powerful. These are going to be on EDH rec as slam dunk home run cards you should be playing. But just because that they're there does not mean they should be in the deck. You should not build your deck basically going straight down. In fact, I actually like to build from the ground up with the mana base first. I like to get my mana out under me. I like to get all of my ramp out under me and then build the deck from there. So that way your deck is always going to be consistent in what it's attempting to do. And then you can have a little bit more fun and a little bit more creativity in your decisions as far as the cards that are actually impacting the board. Hainer Backwalker is a cool one. Comes with X11 counters. When it dies, it makes dudes, and then Mondrak will double those dudes. Skrelv is essentially a extra copy of Mother of Runes, so you can give your Mondrak protection. Obviously, you're going to be looking to activate his ability fairly quickly and make him indestructible, but this is also going to protect him from things like Swords to Plowshares. Toby is an interesting one, so it's a super cheap card, but I do want to identify our win condition. So obviously, this is a deck that's looking to go wide. It's looking to make a bunch of tokens and overwhelm your opponents with a large army of creatures that eventually is just going to whittle them down or one-shot them. Things like Toby are what allows us to actually end the game. So it's one thing to have 25 1/1 tokens on the battlefield, and that does make your board strong and hard to deal with. But if somebody has a couple of really big creatures, 25 tokens might not necessarily finish the game. Toby is going to allow us to finish the game because, one, it makes a 4/4 beast. Again, it comes out at 3 and Mondrak's at 4, so typically we're going to be able to double that if we wait to cast this until after Mondrak. And 2, as long as you control 4 or more tokens, your tokens have flying. So being able to get away from the gummed up ground where there's going to be a lot of attacking and blocking going on, we're going to literally go over the top by giving our tokens flying and end the game that way. Welcoming Vampire. This is a card that should be a slam dunk in any Mondrak deck. I think you need to have consistent card draw. Mono white is known for lacking consistent card draw and consistent mana ramp. So those are the things that we're going to make sure to shore up and have completely covered in our foundation section at the beginning of this deck tech, and then go from there. But Welcoming Vampire is consistent card draw because every time a creature enters with power 2 or less, we get to draw. Even though it's only once a turn, that's basically going to be a Phyrexian arena for us on a creature. Dusk Dawn, pretty obvious why it's here. It's going to board wipe creatures with power 3 or greater. One question that Landon had for me was, how come we don't play other board wipes? A Day of Judgment, for example, that's just 4 mana, destroy all creatures. Again, we're going to be the ones that are going wide with this deck, so it's important that our board wipes keep that in mind and try to stay synergistic with our game plan. Typically, we're actually going to have the biggest board, so when we go to board wipe, we want to make sure that we're in some way saving our board from also being wiped. Dusk is going to be good because most of our tokens are going to be 1 or 2 power. So getting rid of everything other than our tokens is essentially a one-sided board wipe and makes this card extremely powerful. Whenever you're looking at building a deck, one thing I want you to try to do is, instead of just slam dunking all of the highest percent synergy cards on EDHREC, is look at stuff that you do not see very often at a table and play that, because that's what makes Commander fun, is playing cards that are unique and traditionally not good in the sense of power level comparative to the rest of the format. But when you look at specific decks like Mondrak, this card gets much more powerful, and therefore not only is your deck more unique, but it just has a much higher cool factor to it, in my opinion. You can also Aftermath the Dawn half, return all creatures with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So we do want to be considerate of that as we're making decisions for other cards in this deck, that power 2 or less is going to be that much better for us because it synergizes with Dawn, it synergizes with Welcoming Vampire, and hopefully some other things as we move forward. White Sun's Twilight, exactly the same thing. Gain X life, make X dudes, and then if you pay 5 or more into X, you destroy all other creatures. So this is another one-sided board wipe where we can also double up on the effective tokens with Mondrak. Akroma's Will is going to be another one of those win conditions. So much like Toby being able to literally go over the top with flying, Akroma's Will is going to basically make our board untouchable and give it all flying and double strike. So this is going to be not a one-sided board wipe, but this is going to be a one-sided win condition. We're going to use this when we're ready to actually end the game and take players out. Mughul's Valor, 5 mana, basically make a bunch of 1/2 creature tokens with lifelink and then give our creatures indestructible. So this is going to be a way to save our team from board wipe as well as interact with our commander, because we get to make double those amount of tokens. Unbreakable Formation can do a little bit of playing offense and defense, so you can use it defensively much in the same way that you could use the Valor or the Will by giving your creatures indestructible. Your major lose condition in this deck is getting board wiped multiple times. Once you do have an army out, once you do have 5 to 10 or more tokens, you really want to be cognizant of protecting them. You don't necessarily need to get to 50 tokens to win the game. Sometimes 5 to 8 2/2 flyers is going to be enough to get the job done, as long as you can protect them. So again, you can use this to save your board, but you can also go on the offensive with this, with the addendum. By doing it during your main phase, you can give all your creatures +1/+1 counters and vigilance and buff up your team. Look at artifacts. Archaeomancer's map, one of the things that we identified in the beginning was that mono white is not particularly known for card draw or mana ramp. So playing cards like this that allow us to stay at parity with the rest of the table, especially decks that are playing base green and are going to be ramping ahead of us consistently, having something like this to stay at parity is going to be extremely important in keeping our game plan going. Ashnod Altar. So there are going to be times where we have a ton of extra tokens and what we're actually looking for is more mana. Don't be afraid to sacrifice some of those tokens, generate a ton of mana, and be able to get out these things like Symmetry Matrix, Staff of Completion, or even your enchantments out much more quickly. Remember, even making 2 token sacrifices is going to make you 4 colorless mana. That is a huge advantage over the rest of the board. If you have this going on turn 4 and you make 4 colorless mana, you've essentially doubled your mana for that turn. So if all that costs you is sacrificing a couple of tokens that your commander is consistently generating for you, by all means you should absolutely be doing that. Mox Opal, good in pretty much every deck, but obviously it's expensive. Not many people have access to one. They actually opened one out of a pack, so I told them to absolutely throw it in there. Anytime that you can play this in your commander deck, it's going to be good. Norn's Wellspring. Whenever a creature you control dies, scry 1 and put an oil counter on it, and then you can pay 1 and tap it to remove 2 oil counters and draw a card. So again, this is multifaceted for offense and defense. On defense, if we do get hit with a board wipe and we can't save our team, we're going to get a bunch of oil counters on this, be able to scry a bunch, and then eventually get paid out by drawing cards with it. Or on the flip side, we can use it with Ashnod's Altar, and other abilities that let us sacrifice creatures to add oil counters to it ourselves. Staff of Completion is another card they personally owned that they liked. They really like the Phyrexian theming of cards, so we decided to put it in there. This has a bunch of abilities. You can add mana, you can proliferate, you can draw, you can untap. It's pretty much unbounded potential based on the amount of mana that you have access to. Symmetry Matrix. Whenever a creature with power equal to its toughness enters the battlefield, you may pay 1 if you do draw a card. So almost all the time when you make tokens, they're going to have matching power and toughness to allow you to consistently draw cards. Yes, Mughul's Valor is not one of those things, but if you look at White Sun's Twilight, that'll count. You look at Defiler, that counts. Adeline, that counts. Haenerback counts. Toby counts. So we just want to make sure that we have a decent mass of creatures and token creation that is going to interact well with this, so that way when we do generate a bunch of excess mana, we have a place to put it and get paid out for it. Enchantments on Wings of Gold. So this is another major win condition for the deck. Creature tokens that are zombies, or creatures that are zombies and or tokens, get +1/+1 and have flying. So this is a way to not only buff our army by +1/+1, but also bring them all over the top with flying. And then whenever cards leave your battlefield, you make a 1/1 zombie token. So this card's amazing. It does everything we want in this deck. It makes tokens, it buffs our tokens, and it gives our tokens flying. And one thing that white is known for is recycling and reusing things out of our graveyard, buying things back out of our graveyard. So we are fairly often going to be able to create tokens off of this as well. Finally, Smile at Death. Being able to bring back 2 creatures with power 2 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield every upkeep is awesome. This is something that you do want to build around, so make sure that as we build this deck, we are looking to have creatures that interact well with this and can be brought back by this in the exact same way as Dusk Dawn. So this is another reason for us to really focus on creatures with power 2 or less when we are finishing the deck list. With that being said, let's get to EDH Rec and let's actually get started with the deck. So like I said, the first thing I like to do is go straight to the land section and build from the ground up, because once you've done that, you get to have a lot more fun. So we do want to be budget considerate. I think the most important land in this deck, far and away, if we look at utility lands, it should be here, is Emeria the Skyrune. So this card is expensive, but in a mono white deck, it's about as good as it can possibly be. So it enters the battlefield tapped, but at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 7 or more planes, you simply just get to bring a creature back from the graveyard to the battlefield. Extremely powerful, and something we definitely want to play and build around. So we'll add that. We do want to be cognizant that we're not playing too many non-basic lands, because we do want to consistently be activating Emeria, and again, we do want to also be thinking about our budget. So when it comes to non-basics, I'm not going to look at a ton of them very in-depth. Castle Ardenvale is a pretty easy one because it makes tokens and they do get doubled, so we'll add that. And then we'll also add Minas Tirith because it's consistent card draw. Draw a card if you've attacked with 2 or more creatures this turn. We should be able to activate that pretty much every turn of the game. And again, anytime we can shore up the card draw in mono white, that's going to be great for us. Windbrisk Heights, pretty cool card. You can cast a card out of exile without paying its mana cost if you had 3 or more creatures attack this turn. It's not bad. I'm not super convinced, but I think whenever I'm on the fence with a card, I like to add it, hopefully run into it in a game or two and see how it feels. And if you don't like it, it's 50 cents, so you're not really losing out on anything. You can always just replace it with the basic planes later. Emeria we added. Nykthos, if we were budget free and we didn't have to think about the cost of cards, this would obviously be amazing here, but I am going to pass over it in this build. War Room is the one other card I think in utility lands. Oh, I can think of 2 more off the top of my head that we're going to add. War Room again is consistent card draw, so that's going to be a slam dunk for us. And then the 2 that I want to add are Temple of the False God, just because it does let you get ahead on mana. And then finally Myriad Landscape, which I don't see here, but it should be in the basic land section. It is. So we will add Temple of the False God and Myriad Landscape. So again, keeping a couple things in mind, we're considering budget, we're considering how effective these cards are when we're making these decisions. So if we look at Mirix, You can pay 3 to make a Phyrexian Might with Toxic. Anytime that we can do that and have that doubled, again, I'm not convinced it's a slam dunk card, but I'm on the fence, so I think it's at least worth trying because it's under like $2. Anytime a card is under $2 and I'm on the fence, throw it in and try it out. Command Tower notably is not necessary in a monocolor deck. There are advantageous times to play things like this in a monocolor deck, but especially when you're playing a Myria the Skyrune and you want to have a large quantity of planes, I'm not really worried about it. Amiria's Call, so 7 mana, create angels, and then creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Sounds good in theory, but 7 mana is a lot. It does enter tapped unless we pay 3 life, and realistically, there's not a ton of reason to give our creatures indestructible on our own turn, because ideally we're going to be winning by giving them flying. So aside from that, I don't really see anything else that I think is necessary. I would rather put more money into the actual cards in the deck than play any more of this. Take one last look through here. Maybe Fountain Port could be worth a try, but that is over $5, so I don't think it's necessary. So I think we'll stop there. So we have 8 lands. We're simply going to add 29 planes, and we'll be at 37 lands, and that is all of our lands. That's the entire land section done. Extremely budget friendly, but we still have some very heavy hitters that are going to be extremely effective in our personal deck. Now, as I said, the next thing I like to do is go over the ramp package. So we'll add the obvious Soul's Ring, Arcane Signet. We will add a Felwar Stone. One thing I do want to note is when people are building monocolor decks, they very quickly go into 3 mana ramp. They start looking at things like Heraldric Banner, Skyclave Relic, Commander's Sphere. Just to be honest, I hate 3 mana ramp. I think it's normally terrible in Commander. The only time I allow it is when it is extremely effective with your commander and your game plan. So you could consider something like Heraldric Banner. You could also consider something like Patchwork Banner, but Patchwork Banner does force you to choose a creature of a certain type. We're going to have multiple types, so I'm not convinced that's worth. Heraldric Banner, however, does just give them +1/+0. So it's something we can consider, but it could very easily start to interrupt our game plan of making sure our creatures are staying at around 2 or less power, so they don't break up things like Dusk Dawn, things like Welcoming Vampire. We really want to get paid out for those kind of abilities. So for now, I'm going to pass over it. But we do have access to Mind Stone, Marble Diamond. Let's see, off the top of my head, we also have Ebony Fly. We have Liquimetal Torque. At this point, I'm just trying to get, again, 10. I'm always shooting for around 10 to 12 ramp pieces. It is notable that when your commander is at 4 mana, if you can get around 14 pieces of 2 mana ramp, you have roughly a 60% chance of casting your commander on turn 3 every game that you play with it. So we could consider trying to get close to that 14. I'm not, to be completely honest, I'm not sure that that's the route we're going to go yet, but that is something you can think about when you're building your own decks. Thought Vessel. What else? That looks like it's all the 2 mana ramp that it has listed on EDH Rec. So we might have to go other places to find the rest. But currently we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-ish, 7, 8, 9. So we'd really probably like 2 more. I would say Staff of Completion's a half a 1, Mox Amber's a half a 1. So if we can find 2 more 2-mana ramp, that would be great. So since it's not an EDH rec, I'm just going to Google 2-mana white ramp MTG and just see what comes up. Hop on some random website. So this is going to be all 3 mana. Goldmere is a consideration. I don't really want to be playing Knight of the White Orchid. We actually could go for Knight of the White Orchid and Loyal Warhound. And that could be our other 2-mana ramp. I kind of like that idea. Let's do that. Knight of the White Orchid and Loyal Warhound. And Loyal Warhound. So these aren't necessarily synergistic with our deck, but they are 2 mana, they are creatures, and they do consistently ramp us as long as we're not going first. So I think it's definitely worth playing. The other thing that's notable is you can get any planes in your deck. In a deck like this, it's not going to matter because we're only playing basics. But if you were playing a planes that could be fetched, that would make this significantly better. So if we look at utility lands, see if there's any here. Doesn't look like it in mono white. That is unfortunate. However, that does put us, I believe, at 10/11/12 with Mox Amber Staff of Completion. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I would say 11 if you include Mox Amber and Staff of Completion. So let's actually make sure we're not missing any slam dunk 2-mana ramp, and then let's move on. And again, I'm just, for now, pretty much ignoring everything other than 2 mana. Deep Known Terramancer could definitely be an option. Mox Pearl, yeah, that is a good option. Let's add the Deep Known Terramancer. I think this is going to be a good card that's less than $5, consistently allows us to ramp, fits in with the game plan of power 2 or less for a lot of our other stuff going on, and I think it's a good in-between of the 14 pieces that you'd ideally hit to cast your commander 60% of the time on turn 3. This is going to be more like 12/13, so I think it's a good in-between. With that being said, that is all the unfun stuff, and now we can get to the best part of the deck building. So we get to go to the fun part. Elspeth Tyrell, again we're going from the ground up. Planeswalkers, this is going to gain life for each creature, this is going to make creatures, and it's going to destroy stuff other than tokens. Absolute slam dunk. Archangel Elspeth, it makes one guy, and then it buffs, and then it returns stuff. I'm not convinced that's good enough. Elspeth Knight Errant, again, I'm not really convinced that's good enough. Ajani, Strength of the Pride, gain life equal number of creatures you control. Created 2/2 guy. If you have 15 or more, yeah, this is life gain stuff. We're going to add Elspeth Tyrell. I think it's very synergistic with the deck. It's great life gain, it's token generation, and normally you don't ultimate in Commander, but if you decided to, it is a one-sided board wipe. I think we're also going to add the 6-mana Elspeth. Whoops, I reloaded. The 6-mana Elspeth, which I'm shocked it's not here. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Sun's Champion. I think this card is a slam dunk for this deck. I don't know why it's not listed, but it does everything you want. It makes tokens, it destroys creatures with power 4 or greater, which notably we're not going to have many of, and it gives you an emblem that's just going to win the game outright for you, and it's very cheap. So Again, it's important that when you're looking at EDH rec, ideally you would have, you know, a larger understanding of Magic, and you would know all 100 million cards that have been in this game and printed since 1990, whatever it is. But not everybody does. I'm just going based off my personal experience. I just think when you go to build these things, you need to look in other places if you don't have prior knowledge of the format or an understanding of what cards could be good. At least give it a Google and see what other websites have for you, because I think Elspeth Sun's Champion is amazing, and I'm shocked it's not on the website for EDH Rec at least. So that looks like a pretty good package of Planeswalkers to me. I didn't see anything else I loved, and I can't think of anything else that's really necessary for us. So let's start here. Blessed Sanctuary, prevent all non-combat damage to be dealt to you and create whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 token. 5 mana is a lot for an enchantment. I really want our enchantments to be doing a lot for 5 mana. So if we're looking at our current enchantment lineup, we have a 4 and a 5 mana enchantment. One thing basically resurrects 2 creatures from the graveyard every turn, and one thing is a win condition. So our baseline expectations for an enchantment that costs 5 mana has to at least be as good as double reanimate every turn. Is this as good as double reanimate every turn, making 1/2/2 unicorn that could be doubled and then preventing non-combat damage, which I suppose saves your stuff from Blasphemous Act? I don't think that's even close to good enough. So we're going to pass over that. Norn's Decree, whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls deals damage, that opponent gets a poison whenever player attacks. If they're attacked, the attacking player draws a card. So 3 mana card draw. Whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls deal combat damage to you, that opponent gets a poison counter. So this is multifaceted. It makes people think twice about not only attacking you, but it also pays you out for attacking them, because if they have poison counters, you get to draw a card. The first thing we want to think about is, are we able to give poison counters with a card outside of that? Because we can't play that card if it's the only thing that deals poison. White Sun Twilight can do it. Skrelv can do it. As of right now, it looks like those are the main 2 ways that we can give something poison. But that might be enough, because that would be 3 total. Though it is $6.50, this is another thing where we get to, if I'm on the fence and it's under like $5, I'll toss it in. This being over $5, I'm not willing to pay for that to test it, so let's move on. Glorious Anthem. Buffing your creatures by 1/1, you would think, is a great win condition for a deck like this, and it can be, but I want our anthems to either be cheaper or to do more than just giving +1/+1. So if we look at our current enchantment, this one is only 1 mana more, and it creates tokens, and it gives them flying. So we want our expectations of anthems to either be much cheaper than 4, or have a much bigger payout than simply just that 1 line of text. Paladin class, again, buff creatures. Whenever you attack until end of turn, target attacking creature gets +1/+1. No, I would really only want all of our creatures to get buffed. Muster the Departed. When it enters, create a 1/1 guy. Being your end step, a creature died, populate. That's not bad, but I don't think it's amazing. Blind Obedience, having stuff enter tap doesn't really matter for us. Honor of the Pure, 2 mana for +1/+1 might be good enough, because again, it is that much cheaper. Being half the cost of On Winds of Gold is pretty good. And again, we do want to make sure that we're keeping creatures generally above or below power 2. But that being said, we have to have a few things that bring them to that power 2 level. So I would say probably around 5 things that buff our creatures to around power 2 is going to be necessary for us to actually end the game. but more than that is going to get to a point where we're just stuck with them in hand. Phyrexian Awakening. Incubate gives stuff vigilance. Don't care about that. Planar Disruption. Don't care about that. Ossification. Restoration of a Ganjo. I don't care about any of this stuff. I really want our creatures to get buffed, draw us cards, or I want our enchantments to make a ton of tokens. This is pretty much our baseline we're looking at. Dawn of a New Age enters the battlefield with a hope counter for each creature you control. At the beginning of your end step, remove a hope counter. If you do, draw a card. And then if it has no hope counters, sacrifice it, gain 4 life. This card's perfect. 2 mana card draw, consistent in a deck like this, is going to be amazing. Dawn of a New Age. And it's cheap, which is awesome. Chivalric Alliance. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, draw a card, discard a card, make a token. Amazing card. It is expensive, but consistent card draw is one of the best ways to win a game in any game of Commander in any color combination. So that is why these cards are expensive, because they are the best cards in these decks. March of the Canonized. When it enters the battlefield, make a 1/1 make X 1/1 vampires. Beginning of your upkeep, if your devotion to white and black is 7 or greater, make a vampire token with flying. Devotion to white is 7 or greater is possible. I think X spells are going to be interesting for this deck. This is definitely worth playing. This is another card that I think anytime that we can play an X spell that makes tokens, whether it's White Sun's Twilight, March of the Canonized, anytime we can do this with X in the cost is probably going to be worth playing, because it is going to be one of those post board wipe plays. So if we do get hit with a board wipe and we can't save our creatures, being able to have something like this to dump a bunch of mana into and make an entire army and basically put pressure on our opponents to the point where they have to board wipe again is going to be great for us. So we will be adding March. Renewed Solidarity. Choose a creature type. I'm not even going to read the rest. Again, we're going to have multiple types of creatures, so I don't think these cards are necessary. True Conviction. 6 mana for double strike and lifelink I think is way too expensive. We're going to pass that for now. I don't care about gaining life in this deck. I'm not really worried about it. What do we got here? Creature spells you cast have Convoke. Untap each creature you control. We don't really need untap effects. Convoke is cool, but not necessary. 8 mana is way too much. You know, it's unfortunate that they make cards like this that are super unique and cool and powerful, but at 8 mana, this is literally never going to see play in anything. So it just sucks when you open a pack and you get a card like this and you read it and you're like, wow, that's powerful. Oh, it's 8 mana, it's useless. Smuggler's Share. Beginning of each end step, draw a card for each opponent who drew 2 or more cards this turn. Then make a treasure for each opponent who made treasures. So it could be consistent treasure. So it could be consistent mana and card draw. But we're not really playing a deck that's trying to benefit from other people. We want to be building our own engines. So I'm going to pass that for now. Wedding Announcement. Beginning of your end step, put an invitation counter on this enchantment. If you attack with 2 or more creatures this turn, draw a card. Otherwise, make a token. Then you transform it. So the only thing I don't like about this is that you don't have a chance to decline the transformation. If you could just keep this on the Wedding Announcement side and consistently draw cards, I think that would be awesome. But forcing it to flip into a +1/+1 I don't love, so we're going to pass that. Virtue of Loyalty, 5 mana, make a 2/2 guy with Vigilance, put a 1/1 counter, not impressed. Ghostly Prison we don't need. Legion Landing is going to be great. So it's essentially the original version of MDFC. It makes a token for 1 mana, and then if you attack with 3 or more, you get to flip it into a land, so it's almost like Mana Ramp. and then you can actually get paid out later in the game if you have excess mana, making tokens with it. So Legion's Landing is awesome. Darksteel mutation. I think it's important to remind ourselves that we're going to be the ones with the big board that requires answering. I don't think we really need to care about anything else that's going on. Trouble in Pairs is simply too expensive for us. Luminarch Ascension. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if you didn't lose life this turn, you may put a quest counter on it. Keep in mind we're going to have a big army, so it's going to be hard to attack us. We can pay 2 mana to make a 4/4 token with flying if this has 4 or more quest counters. So that means we can consistently probably get this activated in 2 turn cycles and then start paying 2 mana to make 2 4/4 angels with flying. Amazing for a deck like this. We're definitely going to play it. Rebel Rousing. Hideaway. Whenever you attack with 1 or more tokens, and if you control 10 or more tokens, it's just too much nonsense. Tokusai's Welcome's perfect though. 3 mana, consistent card draw, because we're going to have a creature entering with mana value 3 or less almost every turn. So this card is absolutely going to be played. If I can figure out how to spell it. There we go. Inspiring Leader. Double buff I think is too much for our deck. Dollmaker's Shop. Whenever 1 or more non-token creatures, non-toys enter, create a token. Base tower and tough. Not good enough. Flowering Tree. Legendary creatures get buff +2/+1, have ward 1. Non-legendary creatures you control get +1/+1. I think this is going to be worth it. It's another 2 mana Anthem effect that we can choose not to play if we have one out there already, but if we don't, not only does it buff all of our tokens, but it also buffs our commander and gives him ward 1 at 2 mana. That's a pretty great rate. We're going to play that. Court of Grace. Introducing the Monarch is always a decision you have to really think about. As long as you can control it and as long as you can maintain it, it's great. But if you can't consistently do that, it's not necessarily good. So basically we have to think about worst case scenario and best case scenario with this card. Worst case scenario is we invest 4 mana, which again, we've already set the precedent that 4 mana can damn well near win us the game with a card like On Wings of Gold. So this card has to be on par with a massive amount of advantage for us. But at worst, it will draw us 1 card, and then on our upkeeps, make us 1/1/1 Spirit. Probably not worth it for us. Land tax, slam dunk in a deck like this if you can afford it. Too expensive for us right now. Caretaker's Talent. Whenever 1 or more tokens you control enter, draw a card. We don't even have to read the rest. This is a slam dunk. You never even have to level it up, and it's going to be good enough for us. We pretty much want to have at least 1 way to draw an extra card every turn, so we do want to have a good amount of these effects. Cathar's Crusade. This will make your army massive. I'm not convinced that we have to make our board bigger as far as power toughness. I think it's more important to lift our board into the air with flying and win that way. So for now, I'm going to pass over it. Artifacts. I don't think this is going to be that big of an artifact deck. I mean, this is alright. Thrumming Stones, not necessary. Blade of Selves, I don't love. We don't need another altar effect. Panharmonicon is interesting. We can look if we have a lot of enter the battlefield effects. So we have 1, 2, 3. That's not really enough to make it that good for us, so for now we'll skip it. Chroma's Memorial. Creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, pro black, and red. A great card that I think we should play, but we're going to pass over it because it's a little too expensive for us. Throne of the God Pharaoh, however, is going to be awesome. Beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tapped creatures you control. We're probably going to be attacking with a lot of creatures, but I do want to note that it's important when you're playing a token deck, you need to be smart when you're attacking with creatures. You don't want to be like attacking with 5 tokens and losing 3 of them in blocks just to get 2 damage through. So we might come back to that. It seems good in a vacuum, but you have to think about if you're already ahead. Let's think about the best case scenario, right? If you have 15 to 30 tokens out, you should already be winning the game because they're probably +1/+1 and or flying at this point. So you're going to be closing the door pretty quickly, and being able to do an extra 15 to 25 damage from having them tapped sounds really good in theory, but would you rather have something like this, or would you rather have consistent +1/+1 on an enchantment, or would you rather have draw an extra card for 2 mana? For me, I'm going to say I'd rather have one of those things. Banner of Kinship is a creature type thing. We don't care about that. I don't really like playing Wayfarer's Bauble. It's okay, and it does ramp us, so I guess for now we'll play it. Infested Flesh Cutter. It's okay. Eldrazi Monument is great for us. So creature you control get +1/+1, flying and indestructible, and all you have to do is sacrifice 1 guy every turn. This is going to be another card that is worth playing because, again, we want stuff at 5 mana to have a massive impact on the board and actually look to end the game with those cards. So I think in a deck like this, this is one of those things that we should be playing. Lightning Greaves. We got to think about, do we want to play our package of Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots? There's not a ton of creatures we're going to be saving right now, but let's add them. And if we want to decide to get them out later, we can. They're pretty ubiquitous in the format, and they're playable in almost any deck. I think for now it's safe to have them in here. Thousands Moon Smithy. We're not playing enough artifacts to make this useful. Horn of Valhalla can make a bunch of creatures with the X spell, but I think we can do better. There's tons of X spells that make creatures, and I think the equip aspect of it's not going to be super necessary here. Create tokens. Yeah, we want ours to be a little bit better. Staff of the Storyteller. Make a token. Whenever you create a token, put a story counter on it, remove a story counter on it, draw a card. At 2 mana, perfect. Staff of the Storyteller, let's play. We got to note we're at 85 cards, so we want to get really picky. Idol of Oblivion is more consistent card draw. Other than that, I don't see anything super necessary here. We can move on to sorceries. Make tokens, exile stuff, vanquish the horde, mass calcify. 7 mana's a lot. 6 mana's a lot. Storm herd at 10 mana is just too much. Trying to be pretty picky with what we're doing here. Draw a card. Okay, I'm stopping here because I saw draw a card. Create a 1/1 token, then each opponent may draw a card. Create a 1 token. I don't want to give our opponents stuff. We're looking for more one-sided board wipes, not stuff like this. Raise the Past can be really good if we have a good mass of power 2 or less creatures. For now, let's add it, and if we decide to remove it later because we don't hit that mark, we can. Token doublers, I think, are a little win more. Not really necessary in a deck like this. Austere Command could be a good board wipe for us. We can hit creatures with mana value 4 or greater, and then we can also hit artifacts or enchantments. But we are playing 20 artifacts and 11 enchantments currently, so that feels a little scary for us to be playing. Let's move on from the sorceries. I'm just reading this stuff and seeing if it's going to be useful for us. We're basically looking for cards that make a ton of tokens, interact with stuff power 2 or less, save our tokens, or draw us cards. All creatures gain hexproof and indestructible. Players gain hexproof and indestructible. So a card like this is pretty cool, but I don't want to be able to save other people with it as well, so we'll pass on it. Heliod's Intervention, a cool X spell that allows us to hit artifacts and enchantments, and we don't have a ton of interaction in this deck yet, so let's add that. Anytime that you can play cards that are multifaceted and have an ability to, I mean, exactly what I said, multifaceted. Anytime you can play a card that can do multiple things, it's typically better than one card that just does one thing, for obvious reasons. So gaining life in a scenario where we're like almost dead can be good, but also just hitting a ton of artifacts and enchantments off the battlefield can be great as well. I'm seeing other ways to give hexproof to keep stuff alive, make tokens. I want our token makers to be better than this. Flare of Fortitude requires non-token. Rootborn Defenses is interesting. So this is a unbreakable formation type spell that keeps our creatures alive, plus it populates, which can be doubled by Mondrak. I like this card and it's cheap, so let's add it. So now we currently have, let's look at the ways we have to save our board. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can also give it indestructible, so that's like 4.5. That might be it so far. But I feel pretty good at that number. Maybe one more, but for now, let's stay there. White Sun Zenith, I love this card. Grand Crescendo, create X tokens that can get doubled and give your creatures indestructible. So this is actually perfect. This is multifaceted. This is going to save our board as well as have the ability to make tokens. So this will be our 5th and final save our board spell. And then White Sun Zenith I love because it can get shuffled back in, and it makes 2/2s instead of 1/1s. So those are both great. Grand Crescendo and White Sun Zenith. This video is going to be like an hour long. Yeah. It is what it is. I hope you watch this whole thing because this is going to do a pretty good job of explaining deck building to you. Don't know what those cards are, who cares? Archivist of Ogma, search your library. This is going to be a bracket 2, bracket 3 deck, so I don't imagine there's going to be a lot of library searching, so I don't think this is necessary. If you control 2 or more other creatures, draw a card, pay 4 to create tokens. That one's okay. We're really looking for stuff that interacts with power 2 or less as we look through this section. Sun Titan I love. Let's look at how many things it can get back. So we're currently at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33 plus lands. So Sun Titan can currently get back 33 permanents, and as you guys know, I'm a sucker for all of the giants, so we're gonna sneak that in there for now. Other than that, let's try to really focus on stuff that interacts with power 2 or less or draws us cards. This one's cool, but it's going to build up too fast and it's super expensive. Voice of Victory is pretty expensive. Jacked Rabbit is interesting. You get to make a bunch of tokens. But if you end up getting it back out of the graveyard, it's not going to be a higher power and toughness because you're not going to be able to put more into X. Shepherd is 3 power. Monastery Mentor is 2. And we do have a bunch of non-creature spells. That might be good enough. Let's throw that in there for now. Brimaz is pretty cool, but it is power 3. Hoplite, no. Mirror Entity. So I think this will probably be our final win con. So what this does is it has every creature type, not super relevant for our deck, but you can pay X to give all your creatures base power and toughness until end of turn. So if this is on the battlefield and you have, say, 15 1/1 tokens, you can dump 8 mana into this and give all your tokens 8/8 until end of turn. So we're definitely going to add that. So it can act as a win con. It can be brought back by Sun Titan. It draws cards with Welcoming Vampire. It's cheaper with Defiler of Faith. It doesn't die to Dusk. It gets back with Raise the Past. It pretty much fits into everything we're trying to do, so I really like that. Solemn, unfortunately, I think has just kind of gotten outclassed in most decks these days. Amiria Angel's not bad, making 1/1 birds with flying, but at 4 mana, I think we can do better. Phyrexian Vindicator doesn't really do anything for our deck. Battle Angels of Tyr is awesome, but it's a little too expensive for us. 1/1/1 is not super important. We don't have enough creatures for God Eternal Ketra. Leonin War Leader is kind of cool, but it is expensive. Let's see here. We already have Skrelv. 4 mana. Ocelot Pride would be insane. Hero Bladehold is for sure going in here. It doesn't fit the bill of having that power of 2, but it makes tons of tokens and it battle cries, so it's great for a deck like this. I think any of the Elesh Norns can be good. Enduring Innocence is going to be perfect. Interacts with all of our power 2 or less stuff, and it draws cards consistently. So we'll definitely add that. Keeper of the Accord, pretty cool, but not very good for us. I don't think it's quite good enough. Prava can buff. Creature tokens get +1/+4. It's not bad. That's a pretty big buff. That makes them very tanky. And it can make tokens, and it's 3 mana. Let's add it for now. Myrel, good card, but too expensive. Rumor Gather, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. If this is the second time this ability is resolved, draw a card instead. I think we're going to pretty consistently be able to have this going because Mondrak's going to double our tokens, so pretty much anytime we make 1, we're going to make more than 1. So Rumor Gather is another one of those 3 mana or less consistent card draw pieces. Benny Brax, we can make him cheaper, and then at the beginning of each end step, if you created a token this turn, draw a card. I want our card draw to probably be at 3 mana or less, like we talked about, so for now we'll pass over that. Mentor of the Meek's perfect. 3 mana, consistent card draw, and we can activate it more than once a turn. That's a slam dunk. Interacts with all of our power 2 or less stuff, can be brought back by Sun Titan. Come on. I know you know what this card is. There you go. So we're at 99. We're not going to do any game changers right now. Halo Fountain. It can be brought back. It can draw cards, and it can win the game. Felidar Retreat is pretty good, but we aren't playing a ton of mana ramp. They do have Elspeth Sun's Champion. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to add Felidar Retreat. It does make tokens. It does buff our board. We're going to add Halo Fountain. And I know you have interest in a bunch of Elesh Norns. I'll let you get those, whatever ones you want, and build those up on your own. Swords to Plowshares is the best removal in this color. It has to be played. We don't need a ton of interaction, but there's no reason not to just play the best one in the format. Come on. Come on. There you go. Oketra's Monument. It's okay. Skull Clamp is a slam dunk. Being able to sacrifice one guy to draw 2 cards is amazing in any token deck. Token Doubler, great, but it's expensive. Divine Visitation, yeah, it's okay. Secure the Wastes is okay. Martial Coup is really good, multifaceted, because it makes tokens and destroys all other creatures. So let's get Martial Coup in there. Let's see here. Secure the Waste and Expel. We said we were definitely going to play those. And this one's even cheaper. Intangible Virtue. Probably worth putting in. It is probably that 5th buff piece. Plus it gives them Vigilance, so it does more than just buff them as well, and it's only 2 mana. So we're currently at 1, 2, 3, 4, kinda plus Felidar Retreat, so 5. So I think that's a pretty good number. That's what we said in the beginning we wanted to be around. Adeline's already in there. Osier is slam dunk, but we're not going to put it in here just because, again, we're trying to be budget considerate. Hour of Reckoning, a one-sided board wipe, for sure. We'll play that and kind of see how many we have and cut if we have to. And Champions from Beyond. Whenever this enchantment enters, create X tokens. Whenever you attack with 4 or more, scry 2, then draw a card. I love it. We're definitely going to play that. Champions. Whoops. Champions from Beyond. Okay. Obviously, if you have access to token doublers like Exalted Sunborn, Osier, Anointed Procession, I think a couple are good. Playing all of them is super unnecessary. I think that's overkill. But overall, for the price point where we're at, this deck seems pretty insane. We actually have to go through and make cuts now. So let's see what we got. First, let's look at Smile at Death. It's a cool card, but we have to have a large mass of creatures power 2 or less. Do we have that? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 creatures is not really enough. Sun Titan's already doing everything that Smile at Death does. So for now, I think we can cut it. March of the Canonized. This is the one that made the vampires with lifelink. And then if we have good devotion, that's not bad. Let's try to find something that is just obviously not good enough. I think, unfortunately, the Staff of Completion's gotta go. I think the Symmetry Matrix does too. I know we put these cards in, and I know you already have these, but they are far and away some of the worst cards in the deck. 4 mana plus another additional mana for each time you want to draw a card. You gotta think we're already doing that with things like Mentor of the Meek does that, but it's better, and it interacts with our power 2 or less stuff. So I think we gotta cut these cards, unfortunately. Staff of Completion, just not really exactly what we want to be doing. We also have to consider the fact that we're playing 20 artifacts, which is a lot for a non-artifact based deck. Everything else here I do really like though. Let's look at the Lightning Grave Swiftfoot Boots. Are any of these creatures extremely necessary to keep around? I think the honest answer to that is no. We are going to have a bunch of board wipes. So, to be honest, as long as our tokens are alive, it seems like that's the most important thing. Plus, our commander has built-in indestructible. Let's see, we have Deep Known Terramancer. Maybe it's not consistent enough, because it has to be something that's not played. So let's cut that. I think I like all the other creatures here. I think everything else is really worth playing. Sorceries, so we have actually 1, 2, 3, 4 mana board, 4 board wipes. Raise the Past can be good for us. We can return stuff to the battlefield. Is there any way else we can return stuff to the battlefield currently? We have Sun Titan. We have Dawn. That might be it. So it's probably important we keep that, because we did already cut the Smile at Death. And I think all of the one-sided board wipes are really good. So I think we should keep pretty much all these in here. We have a bunch of ways to save our stuff. We have a bunch of X spells. We have a little bit of interaction. This is where it gets tough. Let's see. Eldrazi Monument is just so good at closing a game consistently. Wayfarer's Bauble I've never been a fan of. Let's cut that. It is technically 1 mana ramp, but you do have to invest a total of 3, so I've never been convinced that it's that good, to be honest. We want to make sure to keep the card draw, so I don't even think we're going to consider any of the card draw. So we're really just looking at the stuff that makes tokens. So 4 mana to make a token, and then also buff your creatures. Now that we're currently not so worried about the power 2 or less, because it's looks like it's more going to just be all other creatures, or non-token, I think we can allow our creatures to get bigger. So I think Felidar Retreat can be a pretty consistent win con. Honor of the Pure might not be good enough. We're going to have a total of... This technically buffs, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 effects that buff our army. That seems like a good number. 7 with Eldrazi Monument though. And that gives indestructible. So let's cut Honor of the Peer. I think we wanted to be around 5. 7 seems like too many. We could probably cut one more. What would be the worst one? On Wings of Gold is amazing. Champions is amazing. Intangible Virtues, a little bit suspect. But so is Flowering of the White Tree. We don't really care about buffing Mondrak. We don't really care about our legendary creatures being bigger. But is that better than Vigilance? We gotta cut 2 more cards. This is difficult. It might be the boots. We're not really worried about any of these creatures dying. If they die, it is what it is. I mean, you're playing 16 creatures. But the only ones you'd really want to have the boots on is maybe your commander, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish. So maybe we just cut 1 and keep Lightning Greaves kind of be in the middle. I think that sounds okay. So we're really just looking for 1 more card to cut. We have a lot of X spells. I'm a sucker for White Sun Zenith. I don't want to get rid of that, but it is the most expensive one, but it makes the biggest tokens. Rootborn Defenses. How many ways do we have to save our army? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 seems pretty good. Yeah, I think we keep that. Prava buffs our tokens, but is +4 necessary? It's essentially just +1/+1, really. I mean, yeah, your tokens are going to survive combat, and it's an outlet to dump mana into, so maybe it's worth. Maybe Loyal Warhound just because it's 3 power, but it's consistent, so I don't love that either. Mentor of the Meek. Making 1 token a turn is not that impressive. Most of this other stuff is making 2 or more, so I kind of like that being the cut. Yep. That's it. So I know that, again, you're interested in Elish Norns. There's probably going to be other cards on here you see that you really like, and I did mention a bunch of cards that would be good, but they're just too expensive. I'll let you kind of look through those and make your decision on what you want to change. But I mean, I doubt most people have been watching for an hour and 12 minutes this entire deck tech. I kind of just wanted to give you an unfiltered example of my deck building, my thought process. Now that I'm looking at this Eternal Wanderer, this snuck through the crack. I hate this card. We're getting rid of this. What's one of the cards that we cut that we can have back? Honor the Pure we cut. Swiftfoot Boots we cut. We just cut Mentor of the Meek. How many token generators do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. We have a lot of token generators. Let's add the Honor of the Peer. 2 mana. It was on the cusp. we'll see how it plays out. Or is it honor of the pure? Yeah. But yeah, anyways, back on track. I know this video was long. I know it was nonsense. It's basically just a running thought process of me talking to myself, but I wanted to give you an unfiltered look about deck building, my decisions, my reasoning, my thought process, the numbers I'm trying to hit for each section, whether it be the token generators, the card draw, the board wipes, the interaction, um, the ability to save our own board, buffing, ramp. It's important to be thinking about all these things when you're building a deck, and I know it can be extremely overwhelming when you're first getting into Magic. So if you're looking to build your own deck, I hope you found this helpful. If you have any tips or tricks that I haven't gone over that you can leave for new deck builders in the comments, please do so. Thank you all so much for watching. If you've been here this long, you are a real one. As always, Godspeed.